Thank you for purchasing the Space and Pace Clinic and Playbook Breakdown. We're going to be looking at a system that we can create for a 4-out, a 5-out, or a combined kind of 4 and 5-out system for our offense. We're going to look at spacing, the setup, the transition spacing, the flow from transition spacing and actions to our half-court offense, actions in the 5 and 4-out system, as well as how we build those habits, installing the actions, attacking with the blender technique that the NBA teams use, and then putting it all together, taking it from these concepts and ideas to the actual floor and practice and building all of these habits with simple decision making and being able to run this no matter what. My name is Coach Gibson Pyper. If you have any questions about this, you can contact me on Twitter at halfcourthoops or in the email link provided in the PDF below. Let's get right into the spacing setup. First, we're going to look at the 4-out, 1-in spacing. The 4-out, 1-in has 2 slots, 2 corners, and a porch. I will also call that the dunker spot in this breakdown at times. These slots are going to be kind of just off the elbow. You don't want them being too centered and too, closer to the wing in the corner. It's going to jam up some of that spacing. These are typically your better ball handlers. The shooting guard and the point guard are typically going to be in these slots to start, but the 1 through 4 positions are pretty much interchangeable. We have the corners that are flattened out but not too low. We don't want them to get too low towards the baseline because they're not in a scoring area or a scoring opportunity to be able to catch and shoot threes. And then we have the big man, the 5, is going to be in the porch, or also referred to as the dunker spot. He is going to be opposite of the ball, so that way on any drives, his man's going to have to help up and going to leave him open for easy drop off, dump off, and scoring opportunities. On this diagram, you also see I have a downhill and a scoring area marked. For my teams, typically we'll put like a box or put some sort of designation on the court of where we want the ball to get, whether you're doing a drill and you want to give extra points if the ball gets touches there. Essentially, it's kind of the paint from the second hash up, and then the second hash below is what we call a scoring area, where if you're able to get that far into the paint against the defense, now you're making a simple read. Are you going to try and finish, or are you going to make a dump off pass or a kick, depending on who helps? So when you get in the scoring area, if a defender helps, then you're looking to make an easy read off of that. If they don't help, or if you feel like you have the scoring advantage, then you're looking to score in that scoring area. The 5-out spacing is pretty much the exact same. The only difference is we now take the porch and put them in the corner, so you have a 5-out look. I call this the sweet spot. It's basically the lane lines to half court. I stole that term from Bill Self. Wings and corners. So the wings are basically the corners bumped up, and then corners are flattened out, like we talked about, not getting too low. And the same downhill and scoring area apply. So you have the downhill where we're trying to get the ball first. And then once we get into the scoring area, we make those simple reads. The blended 4 to 5-out spacing starts off 4-out, 1-in, where we're still looking to get downhill, looking to get in the scoring area with the big and the porch staying opposite. But on any drive, if you have a skilled enough big, or if you want to turn it into a 4-out, 1-in look to see where the help's coming from, because it does create different advantages to have 4-out versus 5-out. On a slot drive, you'll see here that the porch is actually going to be exiting out to the corner on the opposite side. So that way, if his man were to help here, then what we'd see is this kick to the corner instead of a drop-off pass. This is probably a little more advanced for high school teams. You got to have some good skill and good players who can read the game and be able to handle this. But essentially, we're going to look at those 3 options when it comes to spacing. One of my personal spacing rules that I've adapted from a couple of NBA coaches and concepts that I've learned is what I call quadrant spacing. So essentially, we just split the court into 4 quadrants. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. We put tape down to start the season to kind of teach our players the spacing, these spacing rules. So we put tape down that splits it into 4s, and then we put the tape down for your cones or tape for our 5-out or 4-out spacing, just where we want them to always end up in different scenarios. So we always want to make sure our spacing is good no matter what, and this helps teach them a little bit more of the spacing than it is just to say space, space, space. But essentially, if you're starting in 5 out, it would look like this, where you'd have 5 cones or 5 X's on the floor with the quadrants splitting it into 4s. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And the number 1 rule is no more than 2 players in the quadrant at the same time. So you can have 2, so you could have the point guard here and even the wing here, but no more than 2. No more than 2, because then that allows the defense to guard basically 3 players with 1 or maybe even 2 guys. And we always want to put the defense in a situation where they have to guard in a ton of space, make them make the mistake. So if you're running 4 out, then you would just have an X there, a slot here, a slot here. So you see it's a little bit easier to see and visualize the no more than 2 players in a square. So we have 2 players in what we would call quadrant 4, but that's okay because that's the big in the porch is going to be 2 in each one. But we don't want to have more than 2. So essentially what we would do is just have them, make basic pass, cuts, drives, and movement, and allow them to kind of visualize, okay, where is the open space. So if we get a drive here, and a kick to the corner, the open space is going to be out in this corner. And so we want to make sure that this player doesn't exit out to the left side, because now we've got 3 players in that one quadrant, if that makes sense. So the number 1 rule is no more than 2 players in a square or a quadrant, and we just help visualize some of the spacing that we're trying to create. So first we're going to look at how we would flow in transition for spacing for 4 out. For me personally, this is what I prefer. The 4 out spacing is the exact same transition everybody normally runs. We have 5 who's the rim runner. The wings are going to flatten out to the corners. We have 4 as the trail man, and then the point guard can go off the trail man or attack and look either direction. I personally prefer Davidson's style of transition, where you have the butt screen, which we will talk about in a second. And then the 5 out spacing would be just essentially taking the rim runner, making him the trail. The other 4, the 4-man in this scenario would then flow into the wing if the ball is on the opposite side, and then the 4-man would be on this side to fill on this wing. But essentially you're just reading where the point guard or where the ball is and then playing off of that. So the 5, the rim run, becomes the trail man, corners flatten out, and then the 4 who was the trail has to make a decision on where he's supposed to fill in his lanes. One tweak that can be made is if you are running a system like this where you don't have great shooters, which makes it harder to spread the floor and space the floor, and don't have the value of shooting. If you have better athletes, the 2 and the 3 can kind of go in from the wing, so you can kind of have them cut in from like the 45-degree angle, like when it breaks in the NBA, or just as they were going to break the plane in the wing, and then have them look to maybe catch and finish layups, and then you can have them maybe continue opposite to the opposite corner so they're flattened out, or you could have them maybe fill out back to the corner that they were originally supposed to go to. Your personal preference. I would personally say just have them continue going out opposite, so you create some more action, some more movement, but that is the tweak. If you, let's say, the wings that are running aren't great shooters, is to have them look for layups in transition, then you can have them cross or fill out to the corners after that. So we're going to look at now specifically Davidson's motion, or their kind of break into their motion, and how I use it for our 4 out 1 in theory. So here we're going to see there's a point guard, a trail man, a rim run, a dead corner, and a dead corner. So this is basically looking at, they've already run down in transition. The point guard has the ball. He's maybe looking to probe or get into the lane and try and create an early advantage for the offense. But essentially Davidson, what they do is, instead of having the trail man come down like normal, they're actually going to have him stay like he is, and instead of having so they're going to basically have him always face the basket. So the 4-man's always going to face the basket here with his butt to half court. So that's why I call it butt motion, or just butt action, because that's what they're looking to do, is have the point guard maybe drive off right off his butt. And the advantage to this is to have easy catch and shoot opportunities for the trail man. Here's an example of Davidson running in transition, so you can kind of see their lanes as they run. So in this scenario, we can see the rim run running to the rim. The trail man is going to run to his kind of sweet spot, but you'll notice that he's going to be facing the basket and kind of sit down on his butt. We're going to have a wing and then a wing fill out, and then the point guard is going to look to probe and attack. In this scenario, the point guard is going to be able to cross off of the trail man's behind here and drive into the lane. Now, let's say that the defense does a good job helping here. The amount of pressure that the point guard has created with this drive leaves the trail man wide open all the time. In this scenario, he's going to finish with a layup, but this is a great example of what the trail man will be in a good system that is run 4 out, 1 in with this trailer specifically setting the screen like this. Here's a good example of not only the trailer being open, but the blended type motion that we've been talking about. So here we can see that butt screen. We have the player in the porch or the dunker spot. After he rim runs, is going to clear out to sort of the porch area. But instead of staying where, you know, the normal dunker spot would be, because they have pretty good shooters all around at Davidson, what we're going to see is the trail man is going to be wide open here, right? Because we have 2 players on the ball, but instead of staying inside, we're going to see an exit out to that corner here, which then creates this 5 out look with the corner wing and the trail man wide open with the point guard attacking in here. So a good example of blending as well as the trail man being open. One of the best spaced teams when it comes to 4 out, 1 in motion offense, in my opinion, is Auburn. Here's a great example of what their spacing looks like. We can see the 2 slots are going to be well spaced, and you can see how far back they are, almost halfway to half court. The corners are going to be enough distance away from the slot, but also high enough so they're not trapped in that corner, so they can have catch and shoot opportunities. And then the big in the porch here is going to be spaced off of the baseline and off of the lane line extended in good space, so that way if his defender steps up, he has the ability to finish and attack in space and catch the ball going downhill. In this example, we can see Auburn looking to maybe attack with a little slot ISO. The player, instead of cutting to the basket, is going to kind of ghost or brush out to the opposite slot. The corner is going to recognize this and then kind of flatten out, so his defender cannot help in this scenario. They look to maybe get a post up. The post is actually going to stay on the ball side right now, whereas normally we'd prefer them to cut opposite. That's okay, because what will happen is this will turn into the blended 5 out on this drive here and creates a little bit of confusion on who's going to help and who's not. Another example of great 4 out spacing comes from Creighton here. Here we're going to see the big is going to flatten out to the porch, and it just makes it an easier read for this guard on this slot to slot drive. We can see a nail stunt, but we can see a simple slot drive in here. The slot over helps, and it's an easy kick and catch and shoot opportunity. One of the teams that not a lot of people know about, but I really like to study, is Bethel, coached by Doug Novak, where they run a lot of kind of 5 out, 4 out blended. Their 5 out stuff's really, really good, and we're going to focus on a little bit of stuff that they run. But mainly we're going to see here, this is just going to be what we call a clear cut. This clear cut's going to open up this driving lane from the slot to be allow the player to get downhill and create just another additional driving lane. I like this action because you can run it out of any entry. Here they run it baseline out of bounds. We're going to see the ball gets reversed and then that clear cut happen. And it just creates additional driving lanes after starting 5 out and then flowing into 4 out. The Milwaukee Bucks run 5 out more than any other team in the NBA. They run this as their primary offense. They run every action pretty much out of this alignment or starting off similar to this. The most common action you'll see them run is a ball reversal and then a middle pin down, almost like a gut pin down or pin down at the elbow. And you're going to see it can be with anybody. Here we'll get a guard screening for Giannis. Screening, it doesn't matter who for, but essentially the ball is going to get reversed After the ball was reversed, you're going to see a quick wide pin down, doesn't matter for who, and have the guard attack off of it or look for catch and shoot opportunities to kind of trigger their offense. Here's an example from Villanova when they go 5 out. What I really like is they're not just stagnant in their 5 out. So you can see the start of this play. We're going to get just a simple exchange from wing to corner here. What this does is create a little bit of extra movement so that the defenders have to make the adjustment of where they're going to help from. Here we see a help off of the corner to stop the drive. That's a simple read and decision where you have 2 on the ball, you have an open corner 3, nice read, nice kick. Here's a good example from Villanova. When we look at a mixed 4 and 5 out system, here we can see the big in the porch. We can see a high ball screen here. The point guard is going to reject it into space. The player who sets the ball screen is going to pop out to like the slot, the 3-point line. We're going to get a kick. Now here in this scenario, the normal option would be after the pass out to relocate towards the basket and find the open space, which would be in this corner. But what I do like sometimes is how in this scenario, Gillespie is going to kind of relocate out to this 3-point line here. We're going to get a drive. Then the big in the porch is going to exit out to this corner here, creating the 5 out look. So on this drive, now we've created a 5 out driving kick look. His man had to help. Ends up not shooting this shot, but what it creates is this little handoff and a side ball screen at the same time. So what opens up is this whole paint area is now wide open. So when this baseline drive occurs, we have good spacing with a relocation and kind of an exchange over here to keep the defenders occupied on the weak side. And on this baseline drive, there's essentially no help, or the help will be too late because the other players in this corner here are worried about shooters. So where the help would come from would be here. So the simple read in this scoring area is no help from the low tag person or the low man in the eye on the weak side, ends up being an easy dunk. In this example from Villanova, we're going to see a slot drive here. The big is in the porch opposite. And on this slot drive, there's no real advantage. So it's going to kind of dribble into almost a post up or a little side 2-man game. What this does is triggers the big to sprint out from the porch to the sweet spot. So that way they can kind of take the big who is defending out of his position. And then what has to happen is a spacing cut. So here we're going to see a spacing cut from this wing to clear opposite. And this just creates a little bit of confusion. And we get a nice catch and shoot opportunity. This is a good example from Villanova of them starting off in their 4 out 1 in motion. With good spacing, you can see their slots are a little bit further out than I would personally like them. It does allow for a lot of space for middle penetration and drives. In this scenario, we're going to get a dribble handoff after a backdoor cut and a keep. Now this keep creates the advantage here for Villanova. We can see the porch is definitely wide and ready. You can see chest to the ball. I personally am a big proponent of having, full sight on the ball. Some people say butt to the baseline. That doesn't really work well for me because I can't see every action that's going on in front of me. I'd rather have chest to the ball. So that way it's an easy catch and finish to the rim. We're going to get a corner help and a kick and then a drive. And on this drive, Gillespie notices that the ball is being driven at him. So he's going to clear out to this corner. The big who is in the porch is going to clear out to this corner and allow for driving and in spacing and allow the player who's making the drive to allow a correct decision. So in this scenario, on this drive here, the read is if we get a help from the slot, it's a kick. If Gillespie's man stays, it's a kick to him. If the porch or the big man steps up, then it's a kick to him. So we make the decisions easier by having clean and clear spacing. Another example of Villanova starting in 4 out and then going to 5 out as the ball screen occurs. Here we have a high ball screen with a player in the porch or dunker spot. And what's going to happen is as this ball screen occurs, we're going to get basically a simple hedge, and the player who is in the porch exit out to the corner. And typically speaking, most teams are not going to help off of this strong side corner. That's what we teach in high school. Is what NBA and college teams teach. You don't want to help one pass away off this corner. So in theory, the help man would be in here, but we have a hug here. He's the help man, a hug here, and a hug here. So essentially, if anybody's beat in this scenario, it's an easy open layup, and that's exactly what happens. Now let's look at some of my favorite actions that we can run in transition. Not all of these I have exact film for because I don't always see every team running this, and some of these are just ideas that I have. But the first action we're going to look at is a drag, which is just another name for a ball screen in transition. In my opinion, there are 3 different type of drags that we can have. The first one is going to be with the trail man. The trail man in this scenario is the 4. He's going to set this little kind of drag ball screen transition as the point guard comes down with a pick and pop opportunity. The other one is a drag with the 5-man, which is generally speaking the big or the biggest player for each team. In this scenario, the 4 is going to recognize where the 5 is coming from. If the 5 is on this side, then 4 would be on this side as well, or 4 can flow into this side and maybe make a spacing cut. But essentially, it's just the 5-man setting a ball screen transition for the point guard. And you can talk about your ball screen reads in different terms of however you teach it. The other is the 4-man setting it, but creating a ghost screen for a downhill drive, which we'll talk about more specifically when we get to our actions for 4 or 5-out offenses. But essentially faking a ball screen, kind of going underneath it and creating an advantage for the point guard to get downhill, create a driving lane. And then the last one is a double drag where the 5 and the 4 set a double ball screen transition. And my rules for my double ball screens is the first player rolls, second player pops. It's easier just to have a definite this is what this player does each time, especially when we talk about kind of positionless basketball. The first player would roll, the second player pops, and the point guard can make easier reads knowing which player is doing that specific action. The next action is a flip. I really like this trailer flip action. The point guard is going to kind of probe, drive right at X4. So if X4 is on the court here, drive right at 4's defender and flip it back for 4 going downhill. 5 would then clear opposite. I really like this action a lot. Let's say on this 4 gets jammed up, so 4 tries to get downhill and can't. He then can kick back to 1, who relocated out to the opposite slot, and then maybe have a clear cut or like a brush cut underneath and create a downhill driving lane for 1. 5 would already be spaced opposite. So those 2 options are good that I really like. We ran this flip action a lot last year. It was pretty effective for us, but I like to add the kickback for us coming up this year for this season. The next action we'll look at is what we'll just call side action. So the side action can be a handoff, a backdoor, or what I call a Miami, which is a handoff into a ball screen. So the first one would be just a side handoff. You'll see a lot of NBA teams run this action. So the point guard brings the ball up the court. He could even look to maybe attack in the lane first, look maybe get some penetration, then go out to the wing for a quick handoff. 3 then can turn the corner, can kick to 4, and we get into our dribble drive or our concepts after this initial handoff action occurs. If X3 overplays, so let's say he is going to be on the high side and maybe looking to maybe jam up that side handoff action that we've run a couple times, we look for that backdoor cut. And then let's say the handoff into a ball screen. So the trail man in this scenario 4 can go into a ball screen. So we get the handoff into a ball screen, what I typically call Miami action. Just what I saw a lot. The Heat ran a lot, so I just called it that. The next option we'll look at is hitting the wing and then Nash, or a double ball screen involving the point guard and then a bigger player, usually the 4 or the 5. Stole that term from the Houston Rockets and Mike D'Antoni when he used to run this action a lot with Steve Nash. But essentially it's a dribble down into the wing, hit 3 on the wing, and then it's a double ball screen between 1 and 4. NBA action run this a lot, especially in their early 21 series. The last we'll look at is hitting the trailer. We can hit the trailer and then clear. So we bring the ball up, no real advantage for the point guard. The point guard reverses the ball to the trailer and then makes a clear cut to the opposite corner, looking to create all this space for the trail man. Or having the point guard then ghost. So the point guard brings the ball up, hits the trail man, and then is going to kind of fake this little ball screen or cut underneath, creating a downhill drive for 4, and just doesn't have to clear the opposite corner, just clears the opposite slot. So those are my favorite transition actions. I haven't seen a ton of them run, specifically the like trail and clear or the kind of ghost or flip and kickback. I haven't seen those a lot in my film study, but I do like to add those actions just conceptually for my team. I want to be able to run a lot of different actions in just our normal transition or our flow offense. One of my favorite drills for transition is what I call D'Antoni transition. Some people also called it free throw build up. But essentially, it is a buildup of 2-on-1 all the way to 5-on-5 to live play. So it starts off with a player shooting a free throw. So in this case, one shooting a free throw. The two defenders are rebounding the free throw. And then as soon as the ball goes up, it's live 2-on-1 the other way. Now, the one color team, so in this scenario would be white. So the white team would be on this end, and the black team would be on this end. So whatever jersey colors you have, just separate them. So you'd have 4 on the opposite end, and then 3 on this same end that are matching those colors. And so it goes 2-on-1. Once the shot goes up, it's only one shot each time. 2 players are going to join each time. So in this scenario, 2 players come off the baseline as soon as one gets the rebound or whatever happens if a shot is made. Then it's 3-on-2. Then it goes 2 more players from the black team are on, and it goes 4-on-3. Then 2 more players from the white team are on, it goes 5-on-4. Then the last player from the black team joins, and it's 5-on-5 the other direction. And then it's going to be live after that. So you can execute whatever your focus of the day is after that. If you want to have them, run ghost screens, run a side handoff, run dribble pitches, whatever you want to focus on building sets into this can be built in on that last 2 trips or play for time afterwards. But it's one of my favorite drills to build up our transition offense and to have the offensive have the advantage each time and the defense have to be able to sprint back and recover and play with a disadvantage. Another great transition drill is what we call 5 trips. Could be 7 trips depending on if you want to expand it to more options. But essentially it's just working on a 5-on-0 transition break. You hit the rim run first, hit the wing for a layup, hit the wing for a layup, the point guard scores a layup, and then flip for the trailer. In this scenario, the 4 and the 5 are the trailer and the rim run. They work together. The 3 and 2 are the wings, and then the 1 is the point guard. So it'd start off, it would be 5 rebounds the ball, outlets to 1. 1 takes 1 or 2 dribbles, hits 4 the rim run. 4 gets his own rebound, and then would outlet to 1 and go back the other direction. So then 1 would be passing up ahead to either 2 or 3 on the wing for a layup. Then same thing coming back the other direction, wing for layup. The point guard would then score a layup, and then the trailer flip would be the last one to finish it on the opposite end. And then the next group would go with their 5 or 7 trips. And you can kind of tweak this based as the season goes along, where if you need to work on a specific thing, for instance, like a trailer drag or, a trailer ghost or, hitting the pitch ahead for the rim run, things like that, you can kind of tweak it to your liking as the season goes along. I prefer this transition drill of the 2-on-1 continuous versus the 3-on-2 2-on-1 standard that I'm sure every single coach has drilled, whereas this is continuous full court drill that I really like. It's helped our team kind of talk about transition defense and offense in one. The ball starts with 2 players against 1. The 2 players attack when the ball crosses half court. The player waiting at half court in this line here will sprint around the cone and then play live 2-on-2. So he has to be able to sprint in, catch up. The offense has a ticking clock on their advantage, so the quicker that they can take advantage of the score, the easier it will be. Then once the one shot occurs, the 2 players who are on defense in this scenario, it would be 3 and 4, are then going to go on offense. So they would have the ball and go the other way. And as soon as the shot goes up, the player waiting at half court can then go around on the cone and become the first defender. Once that ball crosses half court, then the next player can come in around the cone and be the second defender, and the offense has that 2-on-1, and it just continues from there. There also is a 3-on-2 2-on-1 version of this, where it's continuous, where you'd see the 3 players now, 2 players on defense. Once the ball comes across half court, X4 that's waiting can then come in. He has to sprint around the cone. The offense has a little bit of advantage till the defense can catch up, and then same rules apply. When the shot goes up, you'll see the defense become the offense. 2 players that are waiting at half court go on, so the ball is being pushed by X5 here. Once the ball crosses half court, the last player waiting can come in, and then it's 3-on-3. So it's 3-on-2 continuous. So the 3 players that are on defense go to offense, 2 players come in, and then the last player on defense recovers after the ball crosses half court. I really like both of these drills. Run it for 1 to 2 minutes every day. You'll improve your transition defense, transition offense, and be able to have a good conditioning drill as well. To build up the skill development in transition and some of the skills that I want to see my team have in transition and attacking early, I just go 2-on-0 and I build it up. We go 2-on-0, 3-on-0, 4-on-0, 5-on-0. So the 2-on-0 with pitch aheads with an outlet is what I always start with. And this one is pretty flexible. I want to encourage everybody to kind of make this your own. This isn't really where I'm saying this is exactly what we do each time. We change it up every single day to kind of not have stagnation and get the kids' mind flowing a little bit differently each day and give different looks, or if we need to adjust something and correct something, we will do that. It starts off with the player throwing the ball off of the backboard and catching it, turning, and then the player from the wing here is going to call outlet, outlet, outlet. He's going to meet the ball and then attack to the middle. When the player is attacking to the middle, the player who initially passed it off the backboard is going to sprint wide for a layup, a pull-up, for a floater, for a corner 3, for an elbow jump shot, whatever you're going to be doing in that scenario. We always want to put a cone out here as well, so that way we teach them to run in spacing and make sure they go outside the cone every time. If you don't go outside the cone, you're running sprints after practice, and we'll keep track of who misses it and things like that. But this is where you can kind of get creative. You can have pitch aheads. You can have a pitch ahead with a kickback. You can have them read the coach on the closeout here. You can kind of get creative with what you want to emphasize every single day. You can have the pitch aheads with a bust out, so you can have the player who threw out the backboard be the outlet's denied, so he has to take it. If you really want to work on the completely positionless basketball, have everybody be able to handle and pass it and bring the ball up. We also do different things. If you're running, like, let's say you're running pistol action, you can have just a 2-on-0 with the chase, so you can run that pistol action. So whatever you want to do, you can have them do different things. If you want to have them do split cuts, you can have them do that as well, or you can bring the ball up, hit a coach, and run split cut action. Really be creative in whatever you're doing. So here we see a drill we run with 3-on-0, pitch ahead, and ghost. So the player throws out the backboard, he busts out, pitch ahead to the wing. After he pitches it ahead to the wing, he sprints and kind of clears underneath or fakes and sets this little ghost screen. And the player drives. He reads the coach off the drive. If the coach steps up here, he's going to kick. So the coach may step up on this side and force the angle kick to the corner. The coach may take a corner, and that signals the player to finish it because that's our finishing area. So different things that you can do out of this. We also do like 4-on-0. So we have the 4-on-0, throw it off the backboard, pitch ahead, and we get a baseline drift. Add a decision-making process. You can have the coach or multiple coaches or players out there to close out and make the players make reads for extra patches, for catch and shoot opportunities, different things like that. So whatever you're emphasizing in your offense, take that and run that 2-on-0, 3-on-0, 4-on-0, and then we eventually will build it up to 5-on-0. So let's say we go 5-on-0 with a keep in our pistol 21 action. We can have him come off here with a weak side pin down. So different things that we will build up from our offense, from our base, what we want to have and what we want to emphasize every single day. My favorite drill that encourages not only decision making but transition defense in particular is what I call Rockets drill. You're probably sensing a theme that I get a lot of these drills or ideas of these drills from the Rockets and D'Antoni. Probably would have called it Suns if he was still coaching in Phoenix, but this is the Rockets drill. Starts 4-on-4. The offense has the advantage. The defender starts on the outside shoulder of the ball, so one has the ball here. X1's going to start on the outside shoulder behind him, basically. So right now the offense has the advantage, attacking from the wing, attacking from the slot, from the corner. You can mix up the starting points, but essentially it's playing live 4-on-4 until a shot occurs. Once the shot goes up, X5 can release, so he is the rim runner. So the defensive team is now playing 5-on-4 the other way with a rim runner, and the offense then has to, or the offense converts to defense. So in this scenario, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on offense will then convert to defense and have to defend 5-on-4. If the defense who gets the rebound or the outlet can hit the rim runner. So if they convert fast enough and they hit X5 as the rim runner, that is worth 5 points. The game goes to 10, so it's normal scoring. Threes are worth 3, pull-ups are worth 1, layups worth 2, rim runs worth 5. We just de-incentivize pull-ups a little bit in our offensive system. We don't want to make them 0 points because they still are worth something. We do have players who are solid, mid-range guys, so we want to encourage them to still shoot them. But we're trying to incentivize the rim run, then threes, then layups, then pull-ups in that order. Games go to 10, so if you hit the rim run twice, game's over. We also have the Rockets drill +1, so it's essentially the same exact drill we just looked at. Starts on 4-on-4. Offense has the advantage. We convert to defense. So the defense goes to offense. Offense goes to defense. We have to convert and make it a stop. Once the ball crosses half court, we add an extra defender. So it becomes 5-on-5, not 5-on-4. So it's live after that. So the offense has the advantage both ways. When you convert, if you can hit the rim run, it's still worth 5. But if you don't convert, then you have the once the offense is over half court, once the ball crosses half court, that's when 5 or this defender can then come into play and help out his team, usually touching the middle here and then going in. So either defend 5-on-4 for a little bit, but then you're back to full strength 5-on-5. A great transition drill that we do for finishing and conditioning in practice every day is what we call speed drill. You can run this for layups and for threes. We haven't done it for threes yet. We do it primarily for layups. We try to get 28 in 2 minutes is our goal. That's been our best, I think, is 29. So we try to get 28 to make it attainable, where we have to be really good but not perfect. It starts off with 2 cones, wherever you really want them. We put them around the 3-point line, lane line extended. The player with the ball starts off here. On the baseline, he's going to outlet to 2. 2 is going to catch and receive a pass and hit the player sprinting along the wing outside the cones. He catches it and makes a layup, and then he's going to be under the basket here. The passer then becomes the runner, and the outlet man or the passer to the outlet underneath the basket follows his pass to the outlet line. So coming back, it then becomes the player underneath the basket catches it out of the net, hits the outlet player. The initial passer is going to then sprint around the cones and receive a layup. So after this, in this scenario, 5, after he passes to 2, is going to be then sprinting around these cones. So 5 receives the outlet, passes to 2. After he passes to 2, then he has to sprint outside this cone and come back this way. And it just continues like that. You can go right side and left side. We do both sides every day. Spend 4 minutes on our transition finishing. The ball doesn't touch the ground. If the ball touches the ground for an errant pass or even a missed layup and the ball hits the ground, then the score goes back to 0. And I mean, basically they aren't going to get 28 because of that, but the score goes back to 0. So you incentivize perfection. There's no reason to miss layups in this. There's no defense. We're going full speed. All it is sprinting, catching, and finishing. I got this drill from Fred Hoiberg. It's been a great drill for us. We haven't done threes, like I said, but if you want to do the 3-point shot, I think it would be, a little bit more of a difficult goal to attain just because of long rebounds and things like that. A lot of variance with 3-point shots in the corners, but it does incentivize shooting transition corner threes with the same rule apply. Instead of going in for a layup like here, it would be more of a driving kick from 5 to 2 in the corner here, and then 5 goes around that cone and becomes a 3-point shooter. So something that I think we're going to add this year is we want to shoot a little more threes. We'll be a little bit more skilled in 3-point shooting this year, so we're going to have to try and do that a little more. But the speed drill has been a really effective drill for us. Now let's take a look at some of my favorite actions to run in either 4 or 5 out offenses. These are just concepts or actions that we can implement in the offense, and we'll talk about how we implement them next, but I want to kind of show why I like them and why they put pressure on the defense. The first one is the 45 cuts or spacing cuts. So you can see in the first example, we're going to look at 4 out, where the 3-man in this scenario is going to kind of fake a step-up screen and ghost it. then the trigger would be when that happens to have 4 backdoor cut and fill out to either ball side corner or opposite, just depending on reading the scenario. But essentially clearing out this space here to allow room for the pick and pop 3 or even 1 to get downhill, and so his defender can't occupy that space. The next one is just, from like a wing or corner drive. We have a clear cut here from 2, so now we're overloaded with 3 players on this side. We talked about no more than 2 players in that quadrant. Well, here we got 3 players in one quadrant, so on this kick out here, 3 would recognize that the floor is overloaded, and he would make that 45 cut from the wing to the opposite corner. So just essentially spacing out the floor and not allowing the defense to be able to guard more than one person at a time. It would look like this with 5 out, with the ghost screen coming here from 2. I'm just using that as an example of when this cut would be necessary. In this scenario, defensively, X3 would be the person that would rotate over to 2 on the pick and pop here. Well, if 3 makes a basket cut, that takes the help away. And same thing from a wing drive and a kick out to 2 here. We'd have 2, 5, and 1 basically in the same location. So 5 would then make a little backdoor cut or a basket cut to kind of clear space and continue out opposite to allow 2 room to attack and basically keep the advantage for us. This Chicago action is just a pin down into a dribble handoff. I just termed it Chicago because it was just easy for me to remember it. Essentially, it's going to be anytime we see like 1 passes to 2, maybe he goes and sets a pin down, or we get like a pin away, it can flow right into a pin down into a dribble handoff, Chicago action. Depending on who's involved in this, 1 and 2 are both guards in this scenario, so they'd both be pick and pop guys. If we were to like swap out 5 or a big here, then the big would probably end up rolling to the rim instead of popping. But just allowing your players to know their roles, you'll be able to dictate what happens exactly in this scenario. It could be, anytime the ball gets reversed, we go into Chicago action, or just if a team we know struggle to guard it, we can run that. In 5 out, it could just be directly from the start. So 1 could bring the ball up, 2 screens down for 4 right into a dribble handoff. Especially if we're in 5 out, we're probably positionless anyways. So 2 and 1 would both pick and pop, or if 5's involved in this, a bigger player, a non-shooter, you can make them a roller in this offense to put pressure on the rim. There's really no wrong way to do it, but this Chicago action is one of my favorite actions to run. Next, we're going to look at a concept that I kind of took from Villanova from this past year. Other teams have done similar things, but I really like how Villanova did it often. Anytime the ball is being dribbled at the big man in the porch, so in this scenario 5 would be the player in the porch, 1 maybe look to attack and end up crossing back over and drove at 5, he could circle cut or basically cut underneath the basket along the baseline below his defender. So generally speaking, if let's say X5's guarding here, he would typically be the help man, and then we'd have the helper from X3 there. But this would allow 5 to sneak behind the defense and circle cut and allow it for an easier scoring opportunity, catch and shoot. And then as he circle cuts, we want his chest to face the ball on the way back. In 5 out, what this would look like would basically be from the corner. You could have this where if 4 or 5 are good finishers around the rim in this scenario, 1 would clear cut opposite, We get a wing drive from 3. Maybe 4 can sneak backdoor behind his defender and circle cut. Maybe even 1 in this scenario ends up circle cutting. But any guard in this scenario can fill in the porch and maybe circle cut underneath. Anytime the ball is dribbled at you, I would encourage this reaction. So if you're like in this scenario is 1, 4 is in the corner, the circle cut here would be a good option because the ball is being dribbled at you. We want to maintain good spacing, but also put pressure on the defense. A big part of this offense and using these concepts is to understand spacing. And I think the biggest one is clear cuts, or cuts that are going to clear out space for your teammate to be able to drive downhill and create an advantage for you. Here we can see a slot to slot pass from 1 to 2, and then 1 clear cuts to the opposite corner. In this scenario, that means 4 would then be bumped up just a little bit, and 5 would probably hold a position in the porch just to allow 2 to make that driving decision. Generally speaking, 2 would not drive back towards where the 1 just cleared out, but just allowing to have that big to have that reaction time by themselves to create space for 2. And then as 2 drives, then 4 would fill behind. So that way we end up only having 2 players in that 1 quadrant there. But these clear cuts are extremely important. We can look at the 5 out clear cut. Basically, it's just a pass to the wing. And the point guard can cut and cut strong side. He can cut opposite. In 5 out, what I would prefer is as the clear cut occurs to have 5 and 4 exchange on this opposite side here. So that way when 2 drives, if he drives at the same time they exchange, their defenders are occupied. It creates a little more advantage. 5 out tends to be a little more stagnant if we don't have that weak side action. So just incorporating some of that in the offense is something that I'm going to incorporate for our guys next year. And then I had a clear cut with a shallow action. Shallow cuts are generally speaking the cut that is kind of looping from side to side or from like wing to top in a shallow manner, so you're not going all the way down into the basket area or the corner. So 2 can get a downhill drive as 1 passes, and then shallow cuts kind of through the nail here into the opposite wing, because 4 would generally fill here if 1 cut to the corner. So we'll just have 1 cut here and kind of fill out behind, maybe creates a downhill advantage for 2, and it also maintains good spacing already. One thing last year for our team that I don't think I did a great job incorporating is more and more post-ups. Just not even to try and score out of the post-up, but try to create a different type of advantage and force the defense to guard in different ways. And I think one of the ways that I want to do that this year is using a dribble post-up or a dribble punch, where on any dribble or drive action, if there's not an immediate scoring opportunity, to maintain your dribble and flow right into a post-up, so anybody can post up anybody, kind of invert the offense, having the point guard and shooting guards being able to post up, I think will create different looks for our offense. So some of the reactions in the drives, let's say one drives from the slot here and goes into a dribble post up. Three would lift to kind of clear some of that space and not allow an easy strong side trap or a strong side dig. But on this post up, this would trigger the player in the porch, in this case 5, to lift up into like the sweet spot area, and then that can trigger some of the screening cut action if you want to add split cuts, if you want to add like a flare or different things. Basically taking 5 and his defender away from that post up and kind of reading and seeing what the defense is going to do. And the same thing goes out for 5 out. The biggest difference would be if the point guard drives from the middle or if a player drives from the wing, you're already spaced 5 out. So just maybe be like a spacing 45 cut, like from 4 here, maybe a basket cut, maybe a split cut, just some sort of initial action off this dribble post up. So that way we're not clogging up the space. And if they do want to try to work out in the post, they have that option. flare screens are some of the hardest screens to guard. I think they're pretty tough, even if you are a good switching team. There just is a lot of space and a lot of chances for the defense to mess up. Something that I think we're going to incorporate a lot more this year is random flare action. So the flare can be anything really. It can be, pass from slot to slot. We can have the wing set a flare for the point guard. The porch can flare on the weak side. The slot can flare for the slot. It's different opportunities for this flare action, but just being able to add this to our motion offense, I think will be really effective for us this year. And one of my favorite actions, if you run 5 out, you can just make it a simple pass and then have the guard from the wing set a flare screen for the point guard. You can have a dribble at, you can have different triggers for it, but I think adding a flare screen to any offense will be extremely effective. Any sort of space and pace dribble drive offense is going to have this action in it, just a simple flip or pitch, slot to slot drive or any sort of drive at a defender. Defender helps and you pitch it or flip it to the next closest player. A lot of them try and get downhill. Same thing for the 5 out, where drive to the elbow or drive downhill. And then flip it or pitch it back to 2 who's attacking downhill. 1 can relocate out. If you have, let's say 1's not a very good shooter, you could have him dribble, pitch, and then roll, similar to what NBA teams do with like handoffs for bigs. I think it's a pretty tough action to guard, but just being able to have this flip and pitch action that we took from our transition as well, so you don't have to teach anything twice. They already know how to do it. It's just teaching them when to do it in the half court. My favorite screen that we incorporated this year in our motion was the ghost screen. You'll see this all the time at the college and NBA level. It won't really matter, but essentially it's faking a ball screen and kind of dipping and slipping underneath into space, trying to create an advantage downhill for the guard or the ball handler. Another example in the 4-out look would be to get the ball reversed. One side of the floor is empty. We get that ghost action on the side, pick and pop, so there's no help 3 turns a corner. At the same time, I think it would be important to have 1 maybe clear cut through into the opposite corner and then 2 replaces just to occupy the weak side defense and allow 3 to maybe get downhill into the scoring area, make an easier read, or have an open pick and pop opportunity for 4 in space. And then having it in 5 out, that would trigger the 45 cut, which we talked about. So if 2 sets a ghost screen for 1 here, that triggers 3 to have this little 45 cut. Or we could even have 1 pass to the wing and have a ghost action there. The only place I probably wouldn't do it would be like the deep corner. Like I don't know if I would have 2, set it for 5 there. It would just be a little bit tough because there's only one way to go on that, and the defense might catch on. But I would say if it's anywhere above like the second hash, you should be okay. But the ghost screen is one of my favorite actions, and I just think it creates a lot of confusion and a lot of chaos for defenses. Going along with adding more post-ups, I think the high-low opportunity will be there more for us this year. And you can kind of create these in different ways. You can use them ball screens, you can use cross screens, whatever you want to do to kind of create maybe post-up opportunities. For me, I would like to see on drives or a ball screen as a roll, maybe to have 5 post-up. In this scenario, we have a slot-to-slot pass, 1 clear cuts, and then 5 is going to duck in. I like to duck in from the porch, maybe get a quick seal, and have 2 be able to hit 5 in the middle of the floor. Essentially, we want the ball passed anywhere in the sweet spot or the lane line extended, looking to get maybe a high-low opportunity, or if not, a drive and have the big seal off his man. But even if it's a roll from a ball screen, one of the things that I think would be interesting for me at least is to have maybe a basket cut or a backdoor cut in 5 out. In this scenario, like 3 from the wing, is to have a backdoor cut or a basket cut from the wing, have that player seal and sit inside, and have a high-low opportunity for different wings and guards, and kind of how we can tweak the offense that way. Because when you have a backdoor cut, generally speaking, it's going to be pressure. So as this pressure occurs, you have X3 here who jumped out. Well, now he's sprinting on the high side, so that leaves opportunity for this player 3 to stop and seal and sit him on the high side here, so it allows that high-low opportunity and be able to maybe catch the defense off guard. So anytime like a basket cut or a backdoor cut, if it's available, if your player's on the high side, I say seal, sit for 2, and then maybe clear cut opposite, or continue to wherever the fill is in the motion offense. A great read to incorporate, as we talk about like some of the side action here, is a keep. So just kind of faking that dribble handoff, keeping it, and attacking the basket. This was one of my favorite actions from this past year. We had a play where it was really good keeping it, but on this keep here, the big thing is as the ball's being dribbled to the baseline, the 5 is going to lift up into like space. We call it a tee up into space. So one has an option to finish in the scoring area. He's got the baseline drift available now because the 5 is in space. 5's teed up in the middle here, and then the slot would probably get more of an angle, so the 5-man isn't blocking him for that pass, and then the 4-man would just kind of fill in behind here and be available for like an outlet or a reverse pivot pass for an open catch and shoot 3. But the keep is a very good, effective move that I like a lot. We can get a ball reversal and a swing into a keep, any sort of action that we can get like on the side, or even just as a dribble handoff that you can keep and fake. It'll just keep the defense guessing. The next action, called Miami action, is a handoff into a ball screen. I just call it Miami because that's how the Heat do it a lot. But in this scenario, some people have, like in this, would be like two could set this ball screen here. I always prefer in a ball screen to have the 5-man set it if we can. So if the ball gets reversed, or if we see a dribble handoff on the wing, the 5-man can maybe make a read to come up and sprint up for a ball screen. And then the 5-man would roll, one would pop after the handoff, 4 gets downhill and then makes a read. And it just depends on your philosophy, but you could have like a weak side exchange here, or you could just have them hold their position. I think we didn't have a lot of weak side movement this past season, and I think it kind of cost us a little bit at times. So I'm going to incorporate more weak side movement. So I'd probably add a weak side exchange, or anytime the ball gets passed across, maybe exchange, and just anytime a handoff happens, we always have an exchange, or some sort of rules that gets the offense moving. And then in 5 out, it's pretty much the same thing, where it's past the wing, dribble handoff in the corner area, and then you can have the point guard set a screen for maybe one of your bigger players, or just being able to have random action in 5 out would probably be more important. But in 4 out, I want the big always set in the ball screen. Next, we have a side handoff and a side backdoor read. So it's pretty simple. It's just a side dribble handoff from the point guard to the player in the corner. Maybe looking for a quick catch and shoot handoff, or getting them downhill. And then if, let's say, X2 overplays here, or knows the handoff is coming, we have the handoff being jammed. We have a backdoor cut for an easy layup. And then the same thing in 5 out. It's the exact same read. It would just be like, the 4-man, whoever it is, bringing the ball up, go right into a side handoff. If the side handoff is jammed, then we have the backdoor cut by the 3. I think this is pretty good action if you can get really good at this. I think it's just really tough to guard handoffs in general, but being able to read it as a backdoor cut too, just it makes it even more lethal. One of my favorite actions that I've seen run, especially in the NBA now, is Nash action, or basically just random double ball screens, usually involving a guard and a bigger player. Could be 2 guards as well, though. It just depends. But just being able to have the double ball screen as a flow option is just great. So here we can see the 2 and the 5 set this little double ball screen. Like I said, in the 4 out, I like to always have the 5 involved. You can run it where you have 2 guards set it, and you can use the same rules as a double drag. First player rolls, second player pops. I personally would keep it that way just because it's really effective and hard to guard. But just being able to be kind of spontaneous where we get a ball reversal, the 1 and 3 go right into a double ball screen in the middle of the floor. Anytime it's random and sporadic like that and the defense can't set up for the ball screen and talk about coverages and changing the angle and the location of where that ball screen that takes place, I think puts a lot of pressure on the defense. One of the most influential books for me this quarantine, this off season, has been Atomic Habits by James Clear. It talks about, primarily as an individual, but I think there's a lot of lessons that we can take as coaches for our coaching system and our personal philosophy. So the whole system of space and pace is set up around the aggregation of marginal gains. And what that means is if we can get 1% better every day, just 1%, by the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better by the time we're done. But if we get 1% worse, we'll decline nearly to 0. So all we're trying to do is get 1% better at something, just 1% better. So we're trying to create a system that allows us to achieve the process of improvement. So we're trying to create this system designed not around a specific goal or a specific thing that we're trying to attain. We're trying to have the process of improvement every day when we walk in the gym. So one of the best quotes that I've heard, especially from like the Navy SEALs, is you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your system. So if your system is not in place properly, it won't matter. One of the things that I really liked when he talked about kind of building a habit, right? Because all we're going to do is take all of what we're building up into now and how to kind of establish how to build this into our system and how it becomes a habit. So it's not how long it takes to form a habit, but how many reps are required to make a habit automatic, right? So what we're talking about here is taking what we're trying to do, whether it's a Chicago action, a circle cut, a flare, and make it a repeatable habit that we do over and over again automatically. So that is the idea behind growing these habits, is how many reps, right? How many reps will it take for us to perfect this, right? So the whole thing is don't break the chain. Don't break the chain. So if we're talking about a conceptual offense, if we're talking about a space and pace offense, the chain would be we create an early advantage from a drive or a screen or an action that we run. And then we don't continue that advantage and don't continue that. So we don't want to break the chain of advantage, the chain of attack, the chain of keeping the defense in closeouts. We don't want to break the chain of our offensive flow. We want to make sure we just keep adding pieces to it. So if we have the advantage, we always want to keep the advantage over and over and over again. And the biggest thing that he talks about in the book, not building habits, but essentially where greatness comes from, where excellence is from, is basically just being bored. The only way to be excellent is to be endlessly fascinated by doing the same thing over and over again. You have to fall in love with boredom. I thought that was great. The best formula I heard from the book was habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. I think that's a great great thing for us as coaches. Habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery, right? So let's say we have all these actions who we're trying to build as habits. We're going to deliberately practice them every day, and we'll master them. So with that being said, we'll talk about how we build these actions and how I'm going to teach my team this year and how I found success in the past. Whatever actions or concepts you choose to install, I'm going to put mine over the course of a 3-step process. The first step is to teach it, to go over the basic concept 5-on-0, teaching why we are using this. Then we will go 5-on-5 to show how it will work. Then we are going to rep it. So we're going to take the concept after understanding it 5-on-0, run it 5-on-0 on one end of the floor, and then run our fast break into the concept 5-on-5 on the other end live, and then look at the execution part of it where we go 5 straight live possessions for each team. We have to execute that concept and create an advantage. The whole goal with that is to translate what we've taught and repped to the execution. Now, the whole point of this is not to try and score off of that specific action. If you do, you get more points. But if you just create an advantage, you get 3 points. So you get 5 points for scoring off of the concept specifically, 3 points for scoring off an advantage, 1 point for any other type of score, and 0 for everything else. If you do not run the concept correctly 3 or more times, then we basically go back to square one. So the whole idea is to execute this concept perfectly each time. We're not really concerned about the result as much as it is the positive improvement. So, for example, if we take a ghost screen. For a ghost screen, I would explain why we are trying to do it first. The whole point of a ghost screen is to create a chaotic scenario and get either player with the ball downhill or the player with the ghost open for a shot and create an advantage for our team. How we are going to do this is to hold up a fist, which is the universal sign for a ball screen, plant on our outside foot, and explode into space as we fake a screen. The key here is we need a 45 cut at the same time from the wing to the basket. So we need to teach the timing of the cut is when the player who is screening starts moving towards the player with the ball. So as the player who is faking the screen or ghosting the screen is going to hold up a fist, fake his screen as he goes towards the ball handler, the opposite wing will 45 cut into the basket space as he fakes the screen, dips his inside shoulder, and changes speed for setting up his screen. Then we rep it. So we rep it. We go 5-on-0 on one end, make sure the rep is perfect, then finish with a make, whether it's off the initial pass or if it's off a rebound. Then we run our break. So we run our transition offense into 5-on-5, and there's 5 defenders waiting at half court who have to communicate who they're guarding after the shot goes up, so they sprint in. Once the break has no advantage, we execute the concept without setting up and calling out the play or allowing the defense to get set. So there's has to be a great flow from our break, try to get an advantage from the break. Once we don't have an advantage, to go right into the concept in every scenario. Then we're going to go into the execution part. 5 straight live possessions for both teams. If 3 or more concepts of those are not executed properly, or they set up the concept and then allow the defense to get set, we go back to step 1. So we go back to that teaching portion of it. So we always want to go back to where it all started. So we want to go back to the basics. But we should go from step 1 to step 2, step 3 without any issues. We are going to use this method and these ideas for every single action we want to put in. I recommend choosing 5 and installing those as you start, whether it's the 4-out or the 5-out, or if you're going to do like a mixed blended version of it. But I would choose 5. Choose the 5 that you like the most, the 5 that you're most comfortable with, or 5 that fit your team better, and use those to build the concepts around them. The idea of a space and pace offense is spacing, which we've talked a significant time about, but also the pace. We want to have a good pace to our half-court offense as well. And I think a lot of people get pace confused with speed. So pace is essentially, we want to make the defense make mistakes by creating an advantage, keeping the advantage, and then putting them in a blender. If you pay attention to the Utah Jazz and the NBA, they always talk about their blender offense. So we want to put the defense in a blender, which is basically get to the paint, make an easy decision, and an easy read. So the blender is basically, we always want to keep the advantage. And I think there's only 4 main things, maybe 5. As you catch the ball, here are the decisions. Number 1, catch and shoot. If you're open and you feel like you're open, catch and shoot. Number 2, attack the closeout. Read where the defense is closing out, how they're closing out, where they're forcing you, where you can attack, either middle or baseline, left or right. The third option is after you attack, get to the paint, and then in that scoring zone, read what the scenario is. Is there help? If the help comes from the big, we're looking for a drop off. If they have the helper, we're looking for a kick. If any other guard helps, we're looking for a driving kick. And then it's the same reads over and over again, right? After the kick, catch and shoot, attack the closeout, drive the paint, look for either a drop off or a kick. Dominate the symbol. That's literally all we're going to do every single day until we perfect those. So with that being said, that leads us to kind of talk about how we're going to drill some of those reads. And it's basically just making decisions. So create an advantage, keep the advantage, make smart decisions. Now let's focus on putting this all together. So we've looked at concepts, spacing, transition, actions, ideas, building habits, installing them in the blender. Now let's talk about, I guess, how we would install this offense. And I'll just give you a little bit example of like day 1 through 5 of how I would do it and then building from there. But in general, I always have some sort of benchmark list that I like to kind of look at as a coach and say, okay, do we do this well? Do we not do this well? And one of the things that I like to do is kind of just make like check marks. So for instance, this is just an Excel template that I have. I'll include this in the breakdown so you can kind of view it as well. But if we want to install the offense and install the actions, this is how I would do it. So the first, I would just choose 5 actions to start. So your 5 favorite actions, your 5 favorite concepts, whatever you want to include, teach them why, check it off. Teach them how, check it off. Rep it 5-on-0, check it off. The next one is rep 5-on-0, check it off. 5-on-5, check it off. And then we go to the execution, 5-on-5. Do we execute those 5 times? Do we execute the action, that ghost action, correctly? And then do we end up having 5 advantages, not necessarily directly out of that action, but did we create 5 advantages or an advantage on each possession 5 different times? And if you did, check it off. If you did 3, write 3, 2, whatever. So you can kind of benchmark and have the date of, okay, today we only did 2 advantages, but we executed all of the concepts 5-on-5. Where was the disconnect? And write that in the notes. So we can write like ghost action was correct. And then we can write stopped and allowed defense to set, or whatever note that you want to have, or why you only had 2 advantages or 1 advantage in that scenario. So that's just something I like to have when we were installing actions or different things. The next we'll look at prioritize and execute is a term that I took from Jocko Willink. He wrote a book called Extreme Ownership, and basically as a leader you have to prioritize what is most important and then execute that from there. So the first thing first is the spacing that you're going to want to have, whether you're 4 out or 5 out, or if you're going to do the mixed spacing. What is our offensive identity for either that day or just in general? What are we going to get 1% better at? The quadrant spacing goes with the teaching. We want to make sure we understand no more than 2 players in each quadrant. Then you can choose your transition setup. Are you going to rim run? Are you going to no rim run? And that'll be based on your spacing 4 or 5 out. Rim run, no rim run. Are your wings going to run for layups versus corner threes? And then we move on to teaching the actions and concepts. So this is kind of the prioritize that the list that I would have, where if you're in a skill development session and you want to start introducing something, I would start introducing the spacing first, then move to the offensive identity, then the quadrant spacing, your transition setup, and then the actions and concepts will eventually become after that. So let's talk about installing this offense, of how I would do it starting. This is just the offensive portion of practice. So I usually allot about 45 minutes for each offense, and then 45 minutes for defense, and then maybe 10 to 15 for skill development, and 10 to 15 for scrimmaging or whatever 5-on-5 action you want to have. So this is just basically 45 minutes of offense each day. So the first day, I would start off with why we are running this. We always want to teach them why. If you start with why, everything else will fall into place. So why we are running this style of offense, what is our goal? Basically, I would outline our goal is to create an advantage, keep an advantage, and make good basketball decisions, right? The next would be the spacing prep and teaching in the half court, quadrants and boxes or X's on the floor. Talk about exactly what we're expecting them to do when we space the floor, and then talk about how we transition into that. So going from our defense to our offense, what's our transition spacing, what's our concepts in transition, what do we want to focus on, and then introduce the first action that day. So 5 minutes to teach, 5 minutes to rep, 5 minutes to execute. The first few days are going to be more teaching than repping, but our goal is to get them to understand why we are running this specific things and get them to buy in. Day 2, a recap of why we are running this offensive system, a recap of our spacing prep, transition setup recap, and then our 5 trips, or pick a transition drill that you like. I prefer 5 trips just to get them moving up and down the court and understanding how we run in transition. And then we add one more action today. So we take away a little bit of the teaching, add an action. Day 3 is basically the same thing as day 2. The biggest difference is we take away the transition setup. We should, 2 straight days of that, they should understand the transition setup. So we do a transition 5 trips or any other transition drill that you want to do. I, again, prefer that 5 trips because it reinforces the transition spacing and setup. On day 4, that's when we go to taking away the why. 3 straight days, they should understand the why. And we would always, before practice, say, hey, somebody explain why we're running this offense, or, go up to each player individually and say, hey, why are we running this offense? What do you think about it? Things like that. So that way you get them to understand the why. 5 minutes, we go 5-on-0 spacing. So pass and cut, dribble cut, whatever you want to have as the basic 5-on-0 shell stuff, with 2 actions. So 2 actions that we've repped before for 3 straight days. We've been taking notes. We've been looking at, have we created the advantages? Have we run it right? Have we, done everything correctly? If we have, assuming we have, then we're going to move on and use those 2 actions in the 5-on-0 spacing. We go transition 5 trips, and then we review those two actions for 5 minutes. So we just have them run them 5-on-0 on 2 different ends, kind of for 5 minutes, just running those actions over and over and over again. And now we're going to add 2 more actions after that, or we're going to still rep the action that we're struggling with. So let's say we're struggling with the flip action. We're not creating a lot of advantages with that. Maybe we go back and reteach that and kind of drill, build that up from the teach, rep, execute theory of, we have to keep doing this until we master it, right? Until we get great at that. We don't want to just, run 5 different actions and all of a sudden we're great. We want to be able to have that action create an advantage for us. Day 5 is pretty much the same exact thing. 5-on-0 spacing with 2 actions review, then you teach, rep, execute those 2 actions we're adding. So we should have a total of 4 actions in by the end of that first week. If you have a Saturday practice, you can use that as, in our scrimmages, we're going to have only running these 4 actions. If you score off one of those actions, it's worth 5 points. Or, you want to incentivize those actions. If we score off an advantage from one of those actions, it's worth 5 points. Something that gets them to want to run that more and more. Now, going forward from here is, basically day 6, 7, and 8, you're going to have just adding that one more action. We should be having, pretty good theory behind all 5 actions we installed. And depending on your team, like our team this year was pretty smart, so we could probably have all 5 installed by day 6 or 7. So your first week, you're done, and now all we do is just have the decision-making process happen. So you start with an action, and you just include maybe extra passes with decisions. So I've included a list of those decision drills, some of my favorite drills to run. So for example, let's look at a couple different decision-making drills that I really think are going to be beneficial for me at least. I mean, I don't really know what a lot of people are going to do. But for me, I like to have just this driving kick drills to start. So we go driving kick, driving kick, driving kick, just catch and shoot threes. And then we would go into the decision-making process. So let's say we do a baseline drive with 2-on-2 baseline drive. This player's in the defensive position, and he's going to be the one we're reading, right? We get into that scoring area. Offense has the advantage. Go around the cones. We read the defense. If he steps up, then we drift it. If not, then we just finish with the layup. So how I would introduce some of the decision-making drills is just to have it either from a simple slot drive either side or a wing or corner drive either side, and just rep those over and over and over again. You can split it up into 2 different ends of the floor. You can build it up. So I would do slot drive with the offense having the advantage, slot drive with the defense having the advantage. In this scenario, like the offense would have the inside advantage here with the defender chasing. We're reading the help defender. If he helps, then we kick for a corner 3. If he doesn't help, then we're looking to finish. If I have a pass entry, so you can have the defender pass it to either player. Either player has to recognize the defender here takes the first pass. So now we're attacking a closeout, trying to get in that blender action, get him going downhill, and we're 2-on-2 live. Let's say we want to have slot drives with a second defender. So we're playing 3-on-3. Offense has the advantage. Read which player helps, make the appropriate read, kick, and then we could even have the extra passes after that. So we're getting the defense in scramble mode. So we are working offensively and defensively at the same time. You build it up 4-on-4, so you can have that same slot action where we pass to either one. The nail defender takes either player, and then we're playing live. Offense has a slight advantage. We're attacking this closeout either left or right. We're going to be playing live 4-on-4 from here, so we can make a clear cut, a spacing cut, whatever it is we're emphasizing for that day. And then we could even go to our Rockets transition after that. So we play live 4-on-4 after the pass. Offense has a slight advantage, and then we go Rockets drill the other way with a rim runner. So now we're converting back to defense as well. We can look at wing drives or corner drives. It doesn't really matter. We're playing wing drives 2-on-2, reading the defender, wing drives 3-on-3 with 2 defenders, and then we can do wing drives where you have to score off like a second cut where the defense clearly has the advantage. We're going to get stopped on this jump stop. Now 2 and 3 have to make a second cut, or 2 and 3 have to screen for each other. Whatever concept you want to include, just add it to that decision-making process. So basically, as we add things, we want to eventually get to the second week where all we're doing is running an action and then repping it over and over again with decision-making process.